Eagle owls will also favor very similar areas to the hooded vultures, but they're not in competition, so there's no reason why they couldn't potentially share the same stretch of river. But I did discover that an eagle owl can have up to 4 kilometers worth of river territory, which I think is truly staggering, because I mean, they are big birds, but a 4-kilometer stretch of territory is really quite enormous. And obviously river territory is the preferred territory, so in areas such as this where there aren't quite the same level of riverine vegetation, the territories will actually probably be even bigger. Just going to follow this particular road. Make things a little bit clearer, when I'm talking about the carcass that I suspect these vultures are at, I'm talking about the buffalo that was killed a couple of days ago by the Djuma pride. They were found, I think, was it Wednesday morning on the sunrise safari by Brent, and they've been feeding on that carcass for quite an extended period of time over the last few days. The lions have moved off from that carcass from this morning, but it would just be interesting, when I'm talking about the carcass, I'm actually talking about just to make sure that I am correct and that I'm not missing something, perhaps another carcass, just by making an assumption that they are there for the buffalo. So I am just checking carefully, making sure that I'm not making a mistake by assuming that they are there for the buffalo carcass. However, we are very much in the right area. Just double checking around just to make sure that I haven't missed something. Also gives us a nice opportunity to check one of the dams, especially on a hot day like this. A dam is a fantastic place to come and check in the middle of winter. The animals are very rapidly running out of other options apart from some of the big dams. So we're just going to check up on that. Guys, while I continue on here and just double check that I haven't missed something obvious and to head back towards that buffalo carcass, I'm going to send you back to Steph, and I will see you a little bit later, possibly when I'm on my way to see what the hyenas are up to.
Welcome back. I heard you've been on the search of what vultures are busy doing in some trees. Jamie's been keeping you very, very intrigued over there, I'm sure. We're still on search for this male leopard that we've been battling with the whole afternoon. But what we're starting to do now is, now I've established that he hasn't crossed out of this block where we've been searching. This block on our right hand side. And what we're going to be doing now is starting to concentrate our search on around where I saw his last tracks. Now, the tracks are quite old, which is why I decided to increase my area to look where he crossed out. But my gut feels telling me that he's somewhere inside here on our right hand side. So now what myself and Jandre are going to do is we're going to be heading toward prominent trees, prominent termite mounds, prominent patches of shade, and we're going to be slowly winding our way through the bush. And my hope is that with this, the evening has started to cool down now, this evening breeze has picked up, and animals are starting to move around a bit more. Even birds have started to sing again. We've got some long-tailed shrikes or magpie shrikes calling in front of us. What I want to try and do is get to them. They're just a little bit in front of us, and I'll show you what they're doing. They're putting on a bit of a show. And they actually got such a beautiful call. Hear them calling in the distance in front of us. We're starting to get a bit closer to them. Here we go. Beautiful. Lovely light on him. A magpie shrike. A long, beautiful tail streamers used to display. Here we go. Two of them going to the rest of their flock. And if you listen quite carefully, you'll hear the sound that they're busy making. Let me see if I can go forward a little bit just to get you a better visual of them. They've stopped singing now. You know, it's quite amazing. The temperature seems to have dropped easily 2 or 3 degrees in the last 5 to 10 minutes. Starting to hear insects trilling again, some crickets. That little magpie shrike swinging there on his branch. Ah, here he comes. And another one. That one over there. They hang around in these groups together, and I have actually seen them become quite aggressive with one another and mob a member of the flock for whatever reason. They're always sitting in the sun. See, they've now flown off. 1 or 2 more around. We're going to carry on looking for this leopard. Let's go down the road. We're going to be turning. It was nice to see, eh? Magpie shrike. So Gerda, good evening, and Gerda has asked, have we seen a marabou stork yet on Game Drive? I definitely haven't seen a marabou stork in some days now. You know, come to think about it, Gerda, a couple of days ago, and I'm talking about a week or 2 now, there were marabou storks all over the place, and even though we've had 2 buffalo kills in the last 2 weeks, I don't think I've seen a marabou stork in about as long. That is interesting. That is very interesting. So the question is, where have they gone? And I think if I were to guess at an answer, it would be that they are clustered around the river systems that are drying up. Not the permanent rivers, the seasonal rivers that are busy drying up, and they are utilizing a resource that is available this time of the year. Dried up or drying up pans give fish and allow the marabou storks to actually fish. And this time of the year, starting about a month ago, as these pans and these rivers started dry up, these fish get clustered in these watering holes, and the marabou stalks literally just pile into there. And I think that that's exactly where they are. As soon as these resources are finished, I'm sure that they'll come back to us, Kada. It's been so difficult actually tracking this leopard on this road, I must be honest. There's been a lot of traffic up and down today, and has almost completely obliterated any form of tracks. For those of you who were with us a little bit earlier, the car that passed us sort of just drove straight over our tracks. The hyena tracks that we're going to show you, it's not too much of a problem. I'm pretty certain that this male leopard is still in this block that we're driving into, and it's just a matter of time before we pull him out. What I do want to try and show you is up in front of us now. A couple of weeks ago, while I was tracking a leopard, also a leopard through this area, funnily enough, I stumbled upon this porcupine den. And I want to see if I can show you this porcupine den. It is a massive porcupine den, hollowed out of a termite mound. While I'm driving up here, I just want to keep my eye open for this cat. So this time of the day, prominent trees, termite mounds. Keeping my ears open all the time. Even for a guy with ears as big as I have, it's not always easy to listen to everything. Not this massive termite mound, which is bigger than the car. One in front of us here. I've got that leopard tracks on the ground right here. See if I can show them to you. So I've just caught a glimpse of the tracks of this male leopard, which is a good sign. Now these are starting to get a bit fresher. See if I can show them to you. I'm going to get out and I'll circle it for you. And here we have the track of Tingana.
Can't see.
Okay, another one here. One, two, three, 4 toes, and the track here at the back going in this direction. That's what we've been looking for. Now, we have been tracking this track. I was fully expecting to find this track on this particular power line. I was fully expecting to find the track on this particular power line. It was just that this was probably made last night or early this morning, and I want to get to a place where we're a little bit fresher. We're a little bit fresher on the track. Now, it was a hot day. He's probably been lying down. He had a belly full of kudu, and he's quite far from where that kudu was taken from him by those lions, or where we saw him last night for that brief glimpse that we had of him walking away down the road. But somebody's just telling me he's here. Don't worry, we've got more to show you for sure. I've got a gut feel that we are going to find him, or we are going to find some more tracks of him. We've been lucky so far, why not now? Impala off to our right hand side. It's going to be handy to keep a tab on that. David in Michigan has observed me walking around in the bush from time to time, and he also observed quite correctly that I was walking slowly. David, in some instances, walking slowly is definitely preferred to walking fast. It allows you more time to search every bush and every shadow that you're walking into, and especially if you're quite close to something that's potentially dangerous. It's always a good idea to take the time to definitely scan your surroundings. I don't always walk slowly. There are times when I march through the bush. I don't know, it's a good thing. I've marched through quite thick areas as well. I suppose it comes down to how I'm feeling about that particular area. I've built over the years this sort of sense where, I don't know, you just get nervous. A lot of trails guides develop this sixth sense, and although it's not completely trustworthy, yeah, I suppose it just depends on conditions. Now here's this porcupine den I wanted to show you. So I tracked a porcupine, and quite often I've tracked a porcupine into this den, an enormous porcupine. Doesn't look like anything has gone in there recently, but definitely tracks of a porcupine head in and out of this area very frequently. Now, the porcupine probably didn't start this hole. It was started by an aardvark into the termite mound to get at the termites, and then it was further excavated by any number of animals: hyena, warthog, pangolin, porcupine. Those are about the burrowing animals that I can think of right now, the large burrowing animal. And how I knew that it was a porcupine den was A, I tracked him into the hole, and B, there was a collection of bones lying around the hole. Around our hyena den there are also bones lying around the hole, but they have different chew characteristics. They are more robustly chewed, or more aggressively chewed. Porcupine tend to gnaw with their bottom incisors at bones. Nothing here at the moment. Massive termite mound. Easily dwarfs this vehicle. I'm just taking some time to listen. We haven't got Tingana's tracks on the floor here anymore. My feeling is his core territory, where he comes from, is off to our left hand side, and we've spent most of the game drive, in actual fact, checking all the periphery for sign of him. He hasn't come out. I think that he's gone left of where we are, back towards his territory. We're quickly going to cross to Jamie. I heard that she's got a steenbok to show you, and before it runs away, see you in a bit.
Correct, okay.
Well, welcome back everybody. Sorry to interrupt the discussion that you were having with Steph. I'm just busy making my way quickly to the hyena den, but I just wanted to show you guys a steenbok demonstrating some very typical and unusual behavior for most antelope, but very typical for steenbok. So what this little guy is doing is he's actually covering up his dung and urine, which is what steenbok do. It's a way, there's a hot debate between why they do it, but most people seem to agree. Oh, there he goes, disappearing off into the bush and demonstrating that incredible camouflage that steenbok have. So what he's doing, potentially, and most people tend to agree, that steenbok bury their dung just to hide their scent. So guys, what I'm going to do is, if I can, I'm just going to pass you back to Steph, because I would like to get you to the hyena den so that we can see if there's any activity. The buffalo carcass is no longer there. I think it's been dragged into thicker bush. So I'm going to pass you back on to Steph for now, and I'm going to carry on trying to get us to the hyena den in time.
Hey, welcome back from that steenbok. Isn't it amazing we can get you onto this action just before it ends up running away and then come back to us, switch back again whenever there's something exciting to see. Now, we're ending today beautifully with almost exactly the same color sky as what we started it with this morning. It's beautiful golden yellow or yellow sky, not red at all, not a cloud in the sky. Bush is starting to calm down. It's losing that heat fizz, as I like to call it. Animals and birds are starting to move around, starting to get nice and cool. We've had Tingana's tracks on the floor behind us. My gut feel it tells me he's going to head off towards our left-hand side, back into his territory. Are we going to drive into this block, stopping periodically to hear or listen to the bush around us? We're going to be listening to see what the bush is trying to tell us. Squirrels, monkeys, impala, kudu, nyala, zebra, many animals could give us a clue as to where he is. Let's hope he makes a mistake and gets too close to something and it shouts at him and tells us where he is. Hi Raisa, I'm glad that you like that Magpie Shrikes call. I also really enjoy their calls, and I hear that you also enjoy the grey-headed bushshrike call, which is awesome, man. The ghost bird. I haven't heard one for a long time, in actual fact. I think the last time I heard one was also about a month or so ago. But definitely, if I hear another one, I will stop and try and show it to you. Now we're coming into an area that's got quite a lot of termite mounds. Big male leopard are very fond of lying on top of termite mounds, and you'll notice that I've slowed down considerably. Just see that termite mound out there. What is here on the floor? No tracks on this side. Now we have driven here previously this afternoon looking for tracks crossing over this road. The substrate does get a little bit hard here at this particular point. And there we have his tracks right there. They definitely were not there this afternoon. Have a look at those. Well, they may have been, because I'm actually just looking down the road and it doesn't seem to have come on. It's going down in that direction. Let's see if he crosses over here anyway. It came down the power lines. It's on the trail of this leopard, folks. I don't know if we're going to be finding him. These tracks, although looking fresh, what was that Franklin's crying about? Now that is definitely an alarm call of a Franklin. If I was standing further away, I'd actually almost say that there was a leopard right here in this bush. I didn't see that Franklin jump into the air with my own two eyes. See if I can actually show him to you. Now, tracks of this leopard come down onto the power lines over here. Funnily enough, we didn't see any of his tracks on the road, which is weird because we were really driving slow over here by the time we came here. May have turned off into these bushes over here. Leopard. Just when you think that you're getting good at finding these guys, they turn around and show you who's the boss. Ah, Raisa, we've got a magpie shrike to show you, not one calling. But definitely one sitting in the sunset light. Flown away, of course. That's what birds do. Let's carry on. Driving very slowly. I want to make 100% sure. Very surprised at the distance that this animal has managed to cover. Not uncommon for these leopards to walk during the day, especially during winter. I'm not surprised. The nice thing is, and it's a little bit of a calmingness to my ego, is that it doesn't look like he's walked on top of our vehicle tracks. So we haven't bypassed him in our search. Now let's see if he comes out on this road. I'm just trying to be very slow and methodical. As we all know, we can drive straight past these cats. They're such masters of camouflage. I have seen quite a few leopard in this particular area. The noise we were hearing is an atypical call of a brown-headed parrot. Scan the top of that termite mound with my binoculars. Jamie, I'm sure, is en route to the hyena den, and rather than run around in circles or watch this leopard follow me around or drag me around by my nostrils over here, I'm sure Jamie has got a lot more exciting things to show you right now than just the dusty termite mound. As soon as we have something to update, we'll keep you informed.
Hi guys, and welcome back. I believe that that leopard has been proving a little bit tricky. So we've got some beautiful lighting here so that Steph can go and find out what's going on and where this leopard is. It sounds as though he's very certain that the leopard is somewhere very close by, and I'm very much inclined to trust in his opinion, since he has had so many years working in and around the bush and in this area. So at the moment what I'm doing is I'm very, very close to the hyena den. We are maybe at the most 5 minutes away. So we're going to head there now, and the reason I'm going at this moment is because it should be cool enough for the hyenas to be active, but also I don't want to be there too late so that we start losing light, just because I don't want to put spotlights right on that, particularly on the young cub. We can maybe look at some of the adults in the light, but I don't want to shine directly on a cub that young. So let's head out and see what we can find. We're not too far away, so hopefully we start to see some of the adults returning to the clan den. While we are making our way towards the hyena den, Susan would like to know if there are any updates on the various lion prides and whereabouts they are. And this is especially relevant at the moment because we are seeing plenty of change within the territories of the various dominant males. So Susan would like to know, because she missed the sunrise safari, where they all are. So Susan, unfortunately you missed out on a beautiful sighting of the sticks and their cubs. However, they have now crossed south of our border. I'm not sure exactly into which property, but they have crossed to the south. The guys have found the Nkuhuma pride this afternoon, and they have moved off east of us, and not very far either. So they are still fairly close to where they had that buffalo kill a couple of days ago. Not too far away. The Matimba males, to the best of my knowledge, are now moving with the sticks, still moving with the sticks pride. They were seen on Cheetah Cutline, so our southern boundary this morning. But they have moved south as well, along with the sticks. As for the Birmingham boys, I'm not entirely certain at the moment. Last I heard, they were off to the west, the southwest, but I'm sure that they're going to be doing plenty of moving around. If they are pushing south towards Djuma and the Arathusa side, they are going to find that they start encountering other male lions, and it will be interesting to see what they decide to do and where they decide to go. If the Birmingham boys do move into the area, it does mean trouble for both the Nkuhumas and the sticks, who, as I'm sure some of the regular viewers know, are typically associated with the Matimba males. So if the Birmingham boys do decide to go looking for trouble, there is a good chance that the lionesses will avoid them at all costs to protect their cubs. In particular, it spells serious trouble for Junior, the 3-year-old male from the Nkuhuma pride, and he will definitely be making himself very scarce. So we're just approaching the hyena den now, and what I'm going to do is just put my vehicle into low range, because I can see one of the youngsters there. And the reason that I'm doing that is just to keep my vehicle noise a little bit lower, just to keep the revs down, so that we don't cause them too much disruption. So we've got one of the slightly older cubs directly in front of me. The second cub did pop his nose out, but he's just dashed back into the hole. So for some of our regular viewers, you might have noticed on Brent's drive a couple of days ago in the morning, it's a very interesting interaction between some of the adults and a couple of these young, almost sub-adult age cubs. And I would hesitate to use the word bullying, but perhaps it is appropriate in this particular circumstance. These adults were lifting the poor little guy, and we are assuming it's a male, just judging by the way that he was being treated by the adult females. There we go. We've got the two little youngsters here. It's all right, little ones. What's in there? Here we go. The one's just grabbed a bone. Nice little yawn. So, spotted hyenas are probably my favorite predator, although of course it is very difficult to choose. And that is largely due to their incredible social dynamics and the way that they interact with each other. So for those of you who are new viewers or unfamiliar with the spotted hyena, they are the only true matriarchal group, animal group that we have. Here goes the little guy. And I say the only true matriarchal system because the females are actually much, much bigger than the males. I just want to see what this little guy's up to. Okay, he's not causing any trouble. So the young hyena cubs often come and have a little exploration of the vehicle, usually involving their teeth. Hello, little one. Let me just shift so that you guys can get another view of these two. Andrew, how close are they behind me?
They're about 5 meters.
Okay. Well, I'm planning on... Oh, there we go. Just gonna move forward slightly so that we can get the shot. All right. So the reason that these guys might seem a little bit skittish, as opposed to some of the previous hyena sightings that you guys may have seen at this den, is just because there isn't an adult present. So they're not feeling as comfortable and potentially cocky as they might normally. So I'm just going to switch off while we've got this guy here. He's decided that it's still worth coming back to his bone. So as I was chatting about earlier, the spotted hyenas have some of the most amazing group dynamics of any predators to me. Their social communication is absolutely phenomenal. So they did a bit of a test of various animals that do live in group settings. And the test was to see if they could figure out how to get meat off a platform. And the platform had 2 ropes connecting it, but they had to be pulled in opposite directions in order for the meat to fall down, which means that whichever species they are having a look at their communication, they have to communicate with each other with a couple of different animals. And what they discovered was that chimpanzees worked it out very, very quickly, and hyenas were close to follow behind. But then what they did was they swapped one of the members for a new member of the group who had never seen this puzzle before, and almost immediately, without any immediately obvious visible signs of communication, the spotted hyenas had it figured out. So there's social cues and body language. So what you guys just saw actually is one of the very special things that sets hyenas apart from some of the other big predators. And what this guy is doing is he's actually practicing a skill that he's going to be using in adulthood, and that is known as anal pasting. So hyenas have an anal gland that when they want to mark a part of their territory or leave a message, they actually invert, and they leave a quite pungent secretion on a blade of grass. And you'll see it particularly around den sites, but also marking regularly used pathways. And this paste that is sitting on the grass blade will actually stay there for days at a time, unless it's very rainy, of course, but it is very sticky, and it stays for a long time, and it carries a message as to which hyena has left it, and how and what it means, what the reproductive status of that hyena, its sex. So it's all a fascinating, you can think of it almost as a spotted hyena social media update. So it's something like updating your Facebook status or your Twitter status. That is what that little cub was practicing doing in preparation for adulthood. And it is what sets hyenas apart from things like dogs and cats and pushes them more towards the mongoose family. So very, very interesting display there. So we definitely suspect that at least one of these little cubs is a male, and that is largely due to what we've seen with the interaction from other clan members. And in all hierarchy with spotted hyena, any male is automatically placed underneath even the lowest ranking female. There we go, just exploring, using that incredible bite force to chomp into that bone. And hyenas do have an unbelievable force behind their jaw and incredibly powerful teeth that are structured for crushing and getting into the best parts of the nutritious bone, which other predators and other carnivores actually cannot utilize all that well. So they are perfectly adapted for that purpose. Their teeth, instead of having a shearing, cutting molar surface, is actually more for crushing. And that's also ties into a very interesting aspect of the way that the hyena body shape is. So you'll notice when these guys walk around, their front end is much more pronounced and bigger than their rear end. And that's a combination of reasons. One of them is that they are adapted to long distance movement. So for nomadic animals, they can travel huge distances at fairly great speed without getting too tired. So that is why they've got that. They take the weight mostly on the front of their bodies and then do what's known as a crosswalk. So their left front foot and then their right back foot will fall together. It's a very, very interesting and a very energy efficient gait. But also that those powerful shoulders also provide a really nice attachment point for the jaw muscles to stretch right through and provide them with a firm anchorage to provide that bite force that they are so famous for. It's also seen in the striped hyena and the brown hyena. As I was chatting about earlier, spotted hyenas are the only truly matriarchal animals around, and that is because very, very unusually the female is much, much larger, and hormones that she has in her body has an extended clitoris that is almost like a penis. So it's very difficult to actually tell the sex of a hyena, and it's only by watching their social dynamics or to see cubs suckling that you will actually know the gender of a hyena that you're looking at. And there is some great fuss in Johannesburg, which is the city that I was born in and grew up in. There was a great fuss a couple of years ago that they had seen a hyena, and some researchers actually sort of spoke up and said, listen, these hyenas have been wandering around for years. They've actually got a den site in what is probably one of the biggest highway interchanges in Johannesburg. Little bit of play there. Taking his prize away from his brother or sister. So at the top of the hyena ranking system will be the matriarch, and her cubs will inherit her high status. I'm just going to try and reverse a little bit so that we can see that. So guys, just while I'm finding a better position, I'm going to send you across to Steph because he's got a beautiful view of the sunset, and we will be back here very shortly.
And from sunrise to sunset today with us. And have a look at that sky. Lots of bushfires around this time of the year, and it looks like there's one there. That slight haziness that you're seeing is smoke from fires, not cloud. Sunsets. We are racing away from the sun here at around about 1,250 kilometers per hour. Well, that's evident there. We're just going to keep quiet and watch the sun go down. It's such a magical time of day. There you have it, sunset. That rose peach colored sky. Now that you joined me for a sunrise and a sunset, we're going to be going, well, I'm sure you want to get back to Jamie and the hyena then. Exciting to show you.
Hey, what you doing? Welcome back, guys. I'm just keeping a close watch on this mischievous little one, and he's going to turn away. I don't really want them learning to chew on the tires or taking the little rubber caps off the end of our tires, which has happened to me in the past. I turned my back for 2 seconds, and the next thing I looked up and there was a very cheeky hyena playing with the rubber cap that fits over the end of the wheel, the edge of the wheel. So I'm just gonna have a look at what he's doing. Not too much. These cubs are moving all over the place, so when I was repositioning, they moved straight back to where they were before. And it was quite fun to watch because the one cub who had the bone had it snatched straight out of his mouth by either brother or sister, and then moved away, and it was taken away from him. And one of my favorite things about hyena is how their body language can look so very human, and he looked terribly disappointed and rather sad. Also, it always looks as though a hyena's up to no good and has a slightly guilty look, like sometimes dogs do when you come home and they know that they've done something wrong. It is just in the shape of their body, but they do make for wonderfully cute views. So very recently, up until very recently, it was very strongly thought that siblicide or canism was very common amongst spotted hyena cubs. So that's the kind of situation where one cub, particularly if 2 females are born, vies for dominance to the point that it will actually kill the other sibling. It's actually recently been thought that this may not be as prevalent as we originally believed, and that a more common cause of mortality for cubs is committed by their aunts or another relative that would be another female member of the clan. And she might be doing this as a way of ensuring the survival and success and reduce the competition for her own cub. So still a study that is potentially in its infancy and nothing is yet proved, but it is an interesting discussion to have about whether or not this is the case, because of course most of the female clan members, in fact all of them, will be in some way related. So it does seem to be an unusual situation to have a hyena killing a cub that is a relative. However, I think it's probably particularly common when it is a lower ranking female who is trying to ensure the success of her cubs, who will, as I mentioned before, automatically inherit her status. So, Matt in Texas has asked an interesting question about whether or not the inherited status works in the same way for male cubs. So, will the cubs of a matriarch inherit her status if they are male? And will they be higher ranking than a cub born male to a lower ranking female? And the answer is yes, the inherited status still works that way, but it doesn't last for very long, because as soon as a male hyena reaches its maturity age, it will actually leave the clan, and pretty much as soon as possible. And having witnessed the way that these guys were bullied last time I was here, I don't really blame them for disappearing off as soon as possible. A male cub born to a high-ranking female will have a higher-ranking position than a male cub born to a lower-ranking female, which is surprisingly complicated to say, but that is exactly what I mean. But they will still always, any male cub will have a lower status than any female cub, even if it is a high-ranking male against the lowest-ranking female. So we've got a great shot of a little yellow-billed hornbill who is possibly coming in to roost for the night. Very special, very fascinating little birds, and often overlooked, but beautiful, and how striking that yellow beak is. So guys, just while we're here and the cubs are a little bit off away and in behind some trees, and they are moving all over the place this evening, so it's difficult to keep up with them, but I have a question, or at least an observation, from Kathleen, who pointed out that I did notice that as well. I'm not as familiar with this den site as some of the regular viewers might be, but I do know that it is fairly common for some of the tunnels to cave in. Not as often when the den is occupied, because if it is occupied, the hyenas will keep it nice and clear, but it is entirely possible that part of it has collapsed. I'd have to examine some of the earlier shots to have a look at that, but yes, it is possible, and it does have disused sites, but not necessarily restricted to. So let me just have a look at where the cubs have vanished to.
There's one cheeky one behind me.
Is there a cheeky one? Okay, so there's a cheeky one. He's checking Andrew out, just thinking about coming to have a nibble on my tires. And that is one of my favorite things about hyena dens, is that their cubs are so naturally so curious. Look at him. He's seriously considering it, just not quite brave enough to do it while there are no adults around. I actually, in the place that I used to work at, we worked quite a lot with locating and monitoring hyena dens. We'd often go there to put up camera traps, better handle on which hyenas are part of which clan, because a den site is quite a good way of gauging at least some of the high-ranking females and putting together ID kits for them. And whilst I was sitting at a den site, I was distracted by some cubs playing on my left, and while I was looking over there, one of the larger sub-adult cubs actually came and closed his teeth around my wing mirror. She had to turn around. I heard the crunching sound. He broke the glass, and as he did that, I had to act fairly fast. I didn't want him cutting himself on the glass or actually learning that this is acceptable behavior to display around cars. So I smacked the side of the car, and he just kind of looked at me, so I tapped him on the head very lightly. It's the one and only time I've ever touched an animal from the car, and I definitely would not say that it's something that you should do it very often, but it was a situation where I just had to teach him a very quick lesson about chewing on side mirrors. He didn't do it again, or it's probably a she, given the boldness of the behavior and the size of the hyena, but she never did it again, so hopefully lesson learned. Just going to move around a little bit. Here comes a little cub running in from the side. Did you get a fright, little one? Now, unfortunately, my time here is potentially restricted unless one of the adults comes through. And the reason for that is it's not appropriate to shine a spotlight on young cubs at a den site, particularly where they are unattended by an adult.
Here comes the other one.
We just move back a little bit, give this cub some space to come in from this side. There he goes, running. It's all right, little one. So they were getting a little bit adventurous. They'd actually strayed quite far from the den, and then I think potentially a foreign noise or a foreign smell just gave them a bit of a fright, and they've come scurrying back for safety. So these guys will be quite adventurous now. They're almost not quite reaching the sub-adult stage, but they are definitely more inclined towards exploring. But the very, very young and new little cub, the very dark-colored one, it has not yet reached the stage of being quite so brave without its mother around. That little cub will be tucked right into the deeper recesses of this den. So typically hyena dens will have very small tunnels within the termite mounds where only the little cubs can fit into, so that any kind of threat around them can't actually get to them. So even the adult hyenas will not be able to follow those cubs down into those holes, and if they want to bring them out, they have to call to them in a wonderful little sound that they make that sort of sounds a bit like almost like the contact call of a lion, and it is quite a special sound to hear. And hyenas have an incredible vocal range. They do make all kinds of really interesting noises, from the whooping call that you will often hear on documentaries that is a contact call and a territorial advertisement, right down to the giggling noises that they make around kills. However, I think, oh, here we go. One of them's still brave enough to come and have a look. In another 5 minutes at the most, and then I'm going to move away. progress of this den for a long time, don't worry, I will make sure that we keep track of what's happening and try and pop in here at least once a day just to see what's going on and who's around. There is a very good chance that a lot of the adults have been attracted to the various lion kills in this area and are moving around a bit further afield, which is why we're not seeing any of them in there. Having exploration, bit of an exploratory chew on some grass and sticks. And as I was mentioning earlier, it is actually quite common for around a hyena den that you find a lot of chewed sticks. And if you're looking for active hyena dens, which is what I've had to do in the past when working with researchers, we do know certain set den sites, and you start looking for these big termite mounds with these large holes that are clearly have been researched. And you also start looking around the edges for latrines. So hyenas will regularly defecate in the same place. Just having a little bit of a dig. They will regularly defecate in the same areas, and those latrines will get more and more concentrated towards a den site. You also can start looking around for various bones from kills that have been dragged back. Not necessarily done too much with spotted hyenas. And then you're also looking for the smell. A freshly used hyena den or an active hyena den has quite a distinct smell. This little one is, whoops, not quite. Almost. I'm going to try again. Maybe not. Maybe a slight. So now that this one cub has sort of moved behind this tree, making life a little bit more difficult, I'm actually going to take this as an opportunity to leave the den and to leave these guys in peace. I don't want to disturb them with a spotlight, light. So we are going to say goodbye to them for now, but never fear, we will be back in days to come, especially to monitor the progress of that little cub. Hello. No. Hello, cheeky. Definitely thinking about having a nibble on a tire or something equally naughty. Whoop. Scared himself. Tripped over the log. I'm gonna try again. No, maybe not from that angle. So while he's away off behind me, I just want to keep a little bit of an eye on him, just to make sure that he's not too close. I also don't want to start the engine when he's right next to the car, just out of a little bit of respect for him, but he has moved a bit further away. So I'm going to take this opportunity now while he's distracted, just to head across and leave the den for now. But this has been a lovely sighting. I do enjoy hyena cubs. They are terribly entertaining. Okay, little one, don't get a fright. So guys, while I head out from this hyena den, I'm going to send you back to Steph because he's heard something particularly interesting on his evening drive, and I'm going to head back to where I saw the leopard tracks. But I'll see you a little bit later.
I hear that your hyena den has been very active and exciting to go to. I'm told that you saw some interesting behavior, and I'm sure Jamie's been keeping you very busy with all her knowledge. She's incredibly knowledgeable. Myself and Jean-Andre, we decided to come and where we saw the last tracks of that male leopard, we decided to go and camp our car right there where we saw the last tracks of Tingana. And here, if he isn't in the area, we've been sitting by, waiting for him to roar, waiting for something to happen. So far we haven't heard too much, but we have been enjoying this most fantastic of sunsets and just going into the early evening. And I want to show you something interesting. I'm going to try and pull up to Venus. Now Venus is the third brightest object in the sky after the moon and the sun. Can you believe it? And can even be seen sometimes during the day. Now Venus is white like that because of the thick clouds of carbon dioxide that cover it. It reflects a lot of heat, but because of these thick clouds of carbon dioxide, it's like a super greenhouse effect there. And the surface temperature of Venus, therefore, is about 500 degrees Celsius. Can you believe it? Hot enough to melt lead. The surface pressure is also about the same as where the Titanic is lying, and as far as I know, the Titanic lies at about 3.5 or 4 miles below of seawater. So the chances of us colonizing a planet like Venus is very, very slim. Now what's quite interesting for me is the causes, or as Brent would click when he says it, I haven't developed the ability to do that. Causa is how you're supposed to pronounce it, with a lot more pronounced click. They believe that Venus is associated to diligence. When you see Venus in the early evening like we're seeing it at this time of the year, it is there to remind youngsters to milk cows. And when Venus becomes the morning star in a couple of months' time, during our summer months, it's there to remind youngsters about the planting season. So it's a star. Lessons around diligence are given. I found that quite interesting. Now Venus also has phases, like our moon goes through phases. At the moment, I'm not too sure what phase Venus is in. You can sometimes see it with binoculars. To me, it looks like it's a crescent Venus. But just have a look at that sky. Now, as Jean-Andre finishes there, see if we can get it on that super zoom. Maybe you'll be able to tell me what phase Venus is in. But not likely. We've also got a brand new moon. We've got a thin, tiny sliver of our moon, which is making our nights super dark. If we can get in on the moon, have a look at that tiny sliver of the moon that we can see over there. Following the sun down. Oh, that's a lovely shot, man. The eye in the sky is sleeping. And from this sliver of moon, we'll start to towards our new moon or full moon. This is a new moon. We'll start working towards a full moon. Oh, and have a look at those colors in the sky. I'm seeing everything from yellow, I'm seeing a little bit of pink and purple, blue and indigo all around me. Really is a superb sunset. I must say, this Tingana has given us so far, I'm not giving up just yet, the slip tonight. The bush in this particular section of the park is dead quiet. That he should be starting to move already, and I'm hoping to hear him roar. Or for another disturbance to give him away at least. Thank goodness that plague of mocha bees have left myself and Jandre with the sunset. Head a rest where I've been beating it to get them away for the day. And welcome back to me. So we're still going to sit here for a little bit. That skyline, trees. There's a few bats flying around now with us. Really is a magic place. Complete contrast to the last few nights. Actual fact, for almost 2 really active, or a lot of activity at Djuma. It's been really active. And today we just saw what we didn't see crossing our boundaries. We saw tracks of crossing our boundary. Not to worry though, they also come back again. Tangerine, nachi colored sky. Going through almost the full spectrum. I even see a slight greenish tinge of the imagination. Yep. And there's a bat that's just flown across the frame. We've got one bat that's busy hunting across the open area here. I'm watching him as we speak. He comes into frame every now and again. You should be able to see him as this little blip, dark blip across the screen. I've got an interesting question come through about where bats sleep and do they congregate in large flocks. Not so much here in the bush. You find bats congregating under the big leaves of some of the more prominent big riverine trees. They definitely like to congregate inside hollows in trees. tree trunks, holes, cracks in wood. I've even seen them inside cracks in rocks and stones in boulder outcroppings. So not so many bats, although I'm told that there's a fair amount of bats in terms of biomass out here. So definitely hanging underneath leaves, underneath branches, underneath nests of birds, large nests of birds, in cracks in rocks, in cracks under between bark in the tree and dead trees. Definitely enough of those around here with all the elephant we've got. And I think it's time that we move on. Let's keep on searching. This blood red sky that we're driving through at the moment is just absolutely fantastic. And let's carry on our search for this guy who's busy running circles around us at the moment. So, off we go. The temperature's dropped enough for me to actually put my sleeves down, while the rest of South Africa is actually suffering through quite an enormous cold front. I definitely know my wife is jealous of me with my just shorts and a t-shirt on, while they sit freezing at home. Has actually dropped down only a few degrees. It's gone down to 20 degrees centigrade or 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So not too much. Not very uncomfortable. It'll probably drop down another 10 degrees or so, half of what it is now, during the night, with the coldest part of the night for me usually being at about dawn. With the spotlight out, things might come to the table. It's my pleasure, Gwen. I hear you're a fan of my astronomy lesson, and that is fantastic. Thank you very much. Oh, what have we got over there? Let me have a look quickly with my binoculars. As you can see, it's an anomaly in that tree. And see if you can guess what it is. Let's see if I can hold my spotlight still enough for Genre to zoom in on that. And we've managed to find you a flap neck chameleon. So that's the only chameleon species that we find in the Kruger National Park, the flap neck chameleon. And he would be getting ready to sleep where he is at the moment. They sleep tight at night time with their eyes tight closed. He's not asleep just yet. He would have just moved into that position probably a couple of minutes ago only. And hoping not to get eaten by something tonight. Not a very big one, but about average for this size. Now chameleons, they have their tongues attached to the bottom of their mouth, similar to what we do, but a lot further forward, and they're extendable tongues, almost the length of their entire body. And they'll be creeping through the bush during the day, using the sun's temperature and intensity to actually change their colors to match their surroundings, getting close to insects and then shooting out their tongue. It's quite sticky, it has a sticky saliva, shooting out their tongue to catch the insect and drawing it back into their mouth to eat. Fascinating creatures actually. You can actually take beetles and hold them close and they'll forget about everything else and just snatch the beetle out of your hand. So let's see if we can actually get a little bit closer for you. There, we got you a little bit closer to the flapneck chameleon. Tiny little guy with his tail curled up, holding tight onto his branch. He's on a guari branch. And this is probably the highlight of this drive for me, barring this fantastic sunset that I just actually sat through. Funny enough, that was the highlight of my evening, the sunset. I really enjoyed all the colors that we were going through. We've been tracking Tingana, unfortunately unsuccessful, from literally half an hour before game drive today, all the way through to now, and he's managed to avoid me. But we're going to pick it up again tomorrow. And at least from me, I'm going to be saying good night, and we'll see you again, or I'll see you again on tomorrow morning's sunset drive. You're going to be going back through to Jamie, and I bid you good night.
Welcome back to the tail end of our sunset safari. It's actually been quite an interesting afternoon. So we spent some time with those adorable hyena cubs, always enjoyable and fun to watch. And I hear that you guys have just been with Steph and his chameleon. Now that is really very cool, especially to see them at this time of year. I haven't seen one in quite a long time, just because it is so much cooler. Obviously the nice warm weather today brought them out again. But very, very exciting. I love chameleons. They are simply fascinating. And it has been quite a fun afternoon for unusual sightings. I've certainly never had such a good view of a leguan or a rock monitor poking its head out of the hollow in that tree. I'm just going to check this open area nice and carefully with a spotlight. This is where I had my leopard tracks going off to. Now, it has been a rather interesting day of tracking leopards. They seem to have been running circles around us and not being very clear where they've hidden and where they've disappeared to. But I'm sure our luck will change very soon. It has been wonderful to have you guys join us on this live safari experience. Just quickly before I disappear, I wanted to just talk about spotlighting. And I always told my guests that when they're driving through the bush, they must never look for a specific animal, and they must imagine that their eyes are like a spotlight and the brain will highlight what they are, if they are picking up on anything unusual, in the same way that a spotlight actually picks up on the eye shine of an animal very, very quickly, so the reflection from the back of the layer. So just a little parting piece of interest before we close down for the evening. It has been wonderful having you join us, and I thank you all, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all again on the sunrise safari tomorrow morning. So just take a second to stop and say goodbye. Thank you to the FC team and to Andrew on camera and to Steph driving the other vehicle. Have a fantastic evening or a good day, and I will see you guys tomorrow morning.